I am Sue Webley. Welcome to another episode of Inspire. Good morning to you. Good morning, one and all. Welcome to another episode of Inspire. I am so excited to see all of you chiming in, coming in. I see all of your Instagram. You see me go like this. That's Instagram folk over there. Hey, y'all. Do me a favor as you come in. Go ahead and share this out. I'm so excited about the conversation that I'm getting ready to have with an amazing guest. So share it out. Invite your friends, invite your family, tell them to come on and hang out with us on Inspire this morning. If you just stumbled upon this broadcast, you know who I am, what Inspire is about. I am Sue Webley, author, producer, award-winning minister, and founder of Cara Solutions, which is a digital service agency that helps individuals and organizations navigate the virtual space with confidence. And so I believe in the power of words, in the power of wisdom, and in the power of witness. And so that is what Inspire is all about. And this month, it is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we are lifting up voices that challenge and nurture and awaken us, especially around mental health. And so today's guest is doing that kind of work that begins at the root, right? That begins with our children. So before we bring it on, I want to do some quick housekeeping. I want to make sure that you are connecting, following, liking, subscribing. We are on Inspire with Sue W on Facebook and on Instagram. If you've already been following me on Cara Solutions LLC, thank you so much. But go ahead and follow me on those Inspire with Sue W as well. If you want to follow me in general, that is, you can follow me on Sue A. Webley everywhere: TikTok, Facebook, Blue Sky, LinkedIn, Sue A. Webley everywhere. Also, I want to invite you to head over to our website at www.getinspired.live. There you can watch all of our previous episodes, find out a little bit more about the show, and also subscribe to our newsletter. We have some amazing things that are coming up with Inspire soon, and we don't want you to miss anything. We don't want you to miss anything. So we are going to move forward because I'm so excited about our conversation. And so Dr. Amirah is a powerhouse educator, researcher, advocate whose work centers the identity, development, and emotional well-being of Black children and youth. And she is an assistant professor at Cal State Fullerton, a proud Howard, UCLA alum, and her groundbreaking research on dolls and representation was featured in Black Barbie, a documentary on Netflix. Now, if you haven't watched this documentary, please go ahead and view that on Netflix at your earliest opportunity. So whether you are a parent, whether you are a teacher, someone who has children in their life, or simply someone who cares about the next generation, today's conversation is for you. And so before we meet Dr. Amirah, let's take a look at the trailer for the Black Barbie documentary.
If you've gone your whole life and you've never seen anything made in your own image, there is damage done.
I'm a Barbie girl.
When I think of Barbie, I see a little white doll with blue eyes in all pink. That's what I think. I just found Barbie to be a little light-skinned.
Years ago, there were no black dolls. They were all white dolls.
Little white girls, they can see possibility in their Barbies. And there was nothing that I can relate to.
This is me at the creator of Barbie. At Mattel's, I worked on the lines. She would say, do you have any suggestions? I was able to say, we want a black Barbie.
That was a little act of revolution.
Crowning this doll as Barbie was telling the world black is beautiful too.
I designed Black Barbie to reflect the total look of a black woman.
She's black, she's beautiful, she's dynamite.
I thought Black Barbie felt magical.
From a young age, children can learn about inclusiveness.
Really pretty as locks, just like me.
Black Barbie was just taking me to a whole different world.
I knew Black Barbie was different, but I never realized the magnitude. When did you first fall in love with Black Barbie?
When I first got one in my hand.
Good morning, Dr. Amirah. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning.
I'm so grateful for the work that you are doing in your particular area of influence. And so before we get started with our conversation, what are you sipping on this morning?
I am sipping on a little tea.
Mm-hmm. Oh, let's see the cup. Wait, I gotta put you up.
Yes,
okay.
it's disappearing. It's organize, agitate, educate.
Whew, I love it.
Yeah.
Now, is that your brand?
No, so it's not my brand. I used to work for an organization that supported student activists, and this was part of like some stuff that we had as part of the organization.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that with us. And those of you who are watching, well, I have my fearfully and wonderfully made cup, and this is what I'm sipping out of all month.
Yes.
So, and y'all know, those of you who are watching, you've been hanging with me for a long time. Y'all know I got coffee in my cup, but I'm not drinking my usual mushroom coffee. I am kind of hooked on blonde espresso now. So, we'll see how long that lasts. People with ADHD, it's just, we don't like it no more. So we can take a sip. Thank you again for joining all of you who are joining us on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and on Instagram. So great to have you here. As we have our conversation, make sure you tell me where you are watching from, shout yourselves out, and let me know what you are sipping on this morning. So, Dr. Amirah, and I realized I did not actually before we went live, give me the pronunciation of your last name.
Saafir.
Saafir. Okay.
Yes.
I didn't want to check it out.
It's okay.
So your work, you've made it really, your life's work to understand how children, especially Black children, right,
Yes.
develop a sense of self in a world that too often tries to define them first. So what initially drew you to this field, and why is it so crucial to center the experiences of Black children?
I think so. The thing that really drew me was a natural curiosity that I think that I had the opportunity to have. So it started at Howard University, where I just had the opportunity to work with a faculty member. She was doing something I thought was interesting. She had a cultural socialization lab, and it was all about thinking about Black identity for Black kids and how culture inspires them. And I just was able to just naturally join this space and just be curious. And I think that being in that environment and then eventually having an awareness that it was special for me to be able to kind of be in this space and just think and just naturally be curious. That kind of put me on this journey of thinking about the importance of identity and like wanting to create more spaces for Black children to be able to just kind of naturally explore their curiosities and figure out who they are and how they feel. And then as I've continued down this line of work, it's become that kind of intuitive sense that was important I've now learned that it is important. We know it statistically, we know it from the research, not just from our anecdotal experiences. And so that has like created even more passion for me to make sure that we can create more spaces like that for kids, for Black kids.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. So, I mean, your research on toys, right, and specifically the Black Barbie, opened up a powerful conversation about how representation starts so young. And so, how do
Yes.
you see these early influences shaping a child's identity and self-worth?
Yes. So, it's interesting because I think when we think of children, we think of people that we can like protect and like keep away from things, and we can like introduce ideas to them when we see fit. But that's not really how kids are experiencing the world. They're taking the information and making sense of it, whether we are active participants in that process or not. And so these like formative things like Barbies, toys, books, TV shows, the things that kids are engaging with all the time, they are shaping their worldview. They're shaping how they think about things. When we think about Barbie in particular, in a very diverse society that we live in, kids are trying to make sense of that diversity in the same way that we are actually as adults. And we don't even always do a good job as adults. And so they're trying to make sense of that too. And so, for example, Barbie, for example, serves as a space where they are starting to make sense of those things and be able to say like, I'm trying to figure out the difference between these different races, which maybe feels intuitive to us, but it does not feel intuitive to kids. To be like, we're saying that skin tone is determining race. And they're like, well, I'm seeing all these different skin tones represented across all these different races and ethnicities, and I don't exactly see how this lines up. But while they're playing with dolls, they're making sense of those things. They're also making sense of who can play with what. What are the rules around this? How should I be perceiving these? What kinds of attributes should I be giving to these different dolls based on what I know about these different groups? And that extends beyond race and ethnicity as well, in terms of like career aspirations and style and gender norms and things like that. So I think, toys and like the artifacts that kids spend time with help to shape their worldview. So it seems small, but it actually has this really big impact.
Yeah, it does. And I'm glad that you brought up gender norms, right?
Mhm.
Because we still see certain toys kind of promoted for boys and certain toys for girls. And, God forbid, a boy wants to, be a chef, right? And have a kitchen set. And I've seen on social media, like people are in this uproar because little kids are, little boys are like, okay, they're cooking, right? They're enjoying this kitchen set, right? Or if a girl child has a different aspiration, maybe she doesn't want to be a princess. Maybe she doesn't want to be a mama, right? Maybe she wants to, play with trucks and so we assign these gender norms to toys, and you still see that going on today. So thank you so much for that research. Again, if any of you who are watching, if you have a comment for Dr. Amirah, please, I invite you to post your comments and your questions, and we'll be sure that she gets a chance to address them before she leaves us today. So in Black Barbie, and I want you to tell us a little bit about your experience with Black Barbie, but you also revisited historic doll tests, right?
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about that and then go into your experience with Black Barbie?
Yes. So wait, well, I just want to clarify. So talk about the doll test in my personal experience or my experience with the documentary?
Oh, no, your personal experience with the doll test.
Okay. Gotcha. So in the Black Barbie documentary, one of our, aims was to kind of do a doll test inspired. I don't want to say like recreate the doll test, because that wasn't exactly the intention, but to do something that was inspired by the doll test. And the doll test is the 1940 study where there was the kids, and they were given Black dolls and white dolls, exact the same dolls, just different skin tones. And they were asked a series of questions about them. Things like, which one is the prettiest, which one is the ugliest, which one would you want to spend time with? And one of the big findings from that study was that Black children, by and large, were attributing negative stereotypes to the Black dolls. And then at the very end, they asked them, and which doll looks like you? And then they have to sit there and reconcile with the fact that the doll that looked like them is the doll that they attributed all these negative attributes to. And actually that study went on to be very persuasive. It was a major factor in the Brown versus Board of Education. So among all the information that was available, realizing that Black kids were internalizing negative stereotypes was compelling enough to go ahead and push through and say, okay, we need to integrate schools. So the intention in the Black Barbie documentary was to create something inspired by that, in the sense that we had a more diverse set of dolls. So we wanted to understand, like, how are kids thinking about this now in this more diverse context where we've embraced diversity more intentionally. And also we wanted to be a more positive experience for them. We didn't want to ask them these questions and kind of set up this scenario where they could have this really intense psychological experience of like reconciling with, okay, I think these negative things and I think this looks like me. So we wanted to ask them things like, which one looks like your mom, like your sister, which one looks like you, in addition to some of those like preferential questions, like which one is your favorite, which one you want to play with, to try to create an experience where they can just talk and explore and think, but not feel like on the spot or like, kind of set up to have this negative experience. So for me, for my own experience with dolls, I grew up with a ton of Black dolls, all Black dolls actually. My mom she didn't have a lot of Black dolls, or didn't have any Black dolls growing up. She was born in 59. And she didn't like that experience. And so she told us flat out, y'all gonna have Black dolls. So we had a big old plastic bin filled with Black dolls. I have two sisters, so it was three of us, big plastic bin that we all play with Black dolls in it. And to the point where I would go to like birthday parties and like to say I got like a little gift or like I won a game or something and it was a white doll. I would be like, oh, look, mom, look what I got. And they'd be like, oh, great. This is great. And then I would never see that doll again. And then later it would pop back up Black. Whenever she was able to find the Black version, she would replace it. And I honestly didn't think anything of it. At the time, it really normalized Black dolls for me. So having things around me, and that was like an overarching theme in my household. Like, we celebrate Kwanzaa. Like, it was very like, be proud to be Black. I feel like that was the first thing they said to me when I came out the womb. So that just felt very normal to me. We have Black dolls. I'm representing the dolls I play with. That's normal. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I don't remember, and I don't know if mom is on, but I don't remember having any Black dolls coming up. Actually, the one thing I do remember having that has stuck with me is like a pink stuffed elephant, but I don't remember. I think dolls, that the dolls were white, and I guess I'm not really surprised because I shared with you, Dr. Amirah, before we went live, that my family's from Jamaica, right? Very influenced by British rule. And so it's not surprising to me that there would be just mostly white dolls just, available, even given to children. But when my daughters were coming up, I was intentional about finding Black dolls for them, and so it really does make a difference. It really does make a difference. And so all of you who are watching, share your experience about dolls, right? Hey, Pastor Joyce, congratulations on your getting your Master of Arts in Pastoral Care Counseling yesterday. It's so good to see you on. Yeah. Oh, white dolls, white supremacy. Pastor Joyce is saying we didn't get any dolls, right? And so you adapted that 1940 test and kind of brought it more in a modern context. So what would you say were some of your most surprising findings from that adaptation?
So there's a lot of things that happened I thought were very interesting. I think one that is kind of encouraging is that the kids really gravitate when they were thinking about dolls that looked like them, and they were like kind of articulating what that criteria was for them. a lot of it had to do with some of the more like Afrocentric features that they possess. Like one little girl saying like, oh, I like this doll. She is pretty and she has locks just like me. Or, oh, this one has brown skin just like me. She wears her hair just like me. So, or like my mom. And so to me, that is like an indicator that they are drawn to and showing preference for dolls that look like them, which seems like evidence of a sense of like pride in who they are. There was a lot of like Black girl magic, that kind of energy, which speaks to the kinds of messaging they're receiving from their parents, and then them being able to apply that when they're playing with the dolls. So that was one thing that came up. There was also this interesting kind of not even tension, but like an endorsement of diversity, but also an understanding of representation. So they would, when we asked them, like, can a Black girl play with white dolls? They would be like, absolutely. Can a white girl play with Black dolls? Absolutely, no question. One kid said, and everybody agreed, you know, as long as we're having fun, that's all that matters. And now they're like, yeah, that's what matters. And it's like, okay, you know, y'all, you're right, absolutely. So like they definitely endorse diversity while also making comments like, but we needed Black dolls so that Black girls didn't have to always play with white dolls. Or like, you know, it's important that Black girls have dolls too. So they like are able to hold these two truths in a way that I think adults could learn from, of like, let's embrace diversity. I believe in this and I understand that I should be seeing myself. They have that understanding. And these kids ranged in age from 7 to 12. So across that age range, they were still endorsing this idea. And I think the last thing I want to mention that came up that I thought was really interesting was them trying, or actually it's two more things. Okay, was them trying to distinguish between race and ethnicity while they were playing with the dolls. And it led to these really interesting conversations that kind of said to me that some gaps in maybe the way that we talk about things as adults. So for example, they would say, if the doll was white, they knew that for sure. This is a white doll. If the doll was darker skinned, Black doll, they knew that was a Black doll. But all those skin tones in between, they struggle with. And so there were these conversations of like, you know, well, the darker the skin tone, that's the closer you're getting to Black. But then they didn't know. Then one girl is like, no, those dolls are Latina. And another one's like, no, those dolls are light skinned, like light skinned Black. And like they're trying to make sense of it. And even using this language of like Black and brown. And we say that, right? But maybe don't think about how kids are internalizing that and not really understanding how to apply that when they're looking at skin tones, like actually looking at people. So I thought that was interesting because I'm like, okay, if that's what's coming up when you're playing with dolls, how do you feel when you see people in society and you're trying to make sense of things? And then the last thing I wanted to bring up was just that we see these, you know, this kind of nuanced understanding of diversity, representation, being drawn towards things that remind them and affirm them. And at the same time, there was this overarching idea that kept coming up that when we asked them who's the real Barbie, it was always Malibu Barbie, blonde hair, blue eyes. That is the quote unquote real Barbie. And so I think it speaks to this kind of larger tension of we're seeing this growth in that this positive affirmation is coming through, and still they kind of have this understanding that they fall below in the hierarchy of things, in the sense that they know the Black doll is not the standard or the norm.
And that, you know, of course, again, lends itself to those messages, right? The societal messages, the messages that we are getting from that children are getting from the adults in their lives, whether that's a parent, whether it's a teacher, right? Whether it's
Sorry, I was going to just add one more thing. Even like the way that dolls are presented to them. So like one kid made a comment, you know, I know that Malibu Barbie is like the real Barbie because when I go to the store, she's the first one I see. When I see commercials, she's the first one I see. Another kid said, you know, when I see the Barbie movies, not the Barbie movie, they're talking about a Barbie cartoon, even though it's true of the Barbie movie as well. It's the Malibu Barbie. She's the first one I see. So it stands to reason that is the real one.
Yeah. And so what are your thoughts on how we can shift that narrative?
I think it's kind of twofold. I think when I think of like solutions, I think of like individual solutions in the sense of like things we can do immediately to intervene on how kids are experiencing things, and then things that we need to do as a society. So I think like if I zoom out first, I think as society, we need to actively reposition the way that we illustrate, we show these things. So like, yes, it's absolutely true that if you go to the store, the first doll you're going to see is the white doll. It's absolutely true that when you watch Barbie TV shows and movies, the center of that world tends to be white dolls. The Barbie movie, stereotypical Barbie, she was the center of that world. We had a lot of diverse characters. We had Issa Rae, who was the president and Black, but how often do we see Issa in that movie? And what was her position to stereotypical Barbie? So I think that if we want kids to see themselves as like the center of their own world and be able to see themselves as not this like side character, we have to position them differently. And that's something that has to be done, like an ideological thing that needs to be taken on as society, so that it is normal to go to the store and see Black dolls at the center of the display. It is normal to go watch the new Barbie show and the main character just happens to be a black Barbie. Like, that has to be the case. But also I think that we, while we're not living in that society, while that is not the case, unfortunately, and especially not the case right now, we have to then intervene on that process with kids. And that looks like, providing these positive messages of like ethnic racial socialization, like making it so that we can't shy away from telling them the truth, but we can provide kind of cultural tools of resilience, so to speak, that can intervene. So for example, I see what the kids were saying about like Black girl magic and like locks like me. I see that as evidence of positive socialization from their parents. And that leads to a positive sense of identity that can kind of hold firm even in the face of adversity, where you can look at something and say, oh, that's discrimination, versus saying, oh, there's something wrong with me. And so I think that helping kids have that like awareness, not to the point of like scaring them, but to the point of just helping them understand that just because you're the way that society positions you doesn't have anything to do with your worth, essentially. So I think that it's like a change society, and in the meantime, we have to intervene.
Thank you so much for all that you've shared. This has been such a rich conversation so far. We are going to take a quick break to allow you to take a sip of that tea and do some housekeeping, and we'll be back with more conversation with the amazing Dr. Amirah Saafir. All right, thank you again for joining us today. I want to invite you again to connect, follow, like, and subscribe. Again, you can follow us on Inspire with Sue W on Facebook and on Instagram. If you want to follow me personally, I'm Sue A. Webley everywhere. And I'll also invite you to head over to our website at www.getinspired.live to subscribe to our newsletter. We have some things coming up with the Inspire Network we don't want you to miss, so please go ahead and subscribe. Also, are you someone you know on a mission to create change while inspiring others to do the same? We want to hear from you. Okay, I want to have you in the virtual seat across from me on a future episode of Inspire. Once again, you can head over to our website. You can book your appearance right on our website. Just hit that tab, be our guest, fill it out, and a member of our team will get back to you. Also, I want to introduce something new that we're starting called the Overflow. Listen, after our guests just impart some of that wisdom, there's still some things that we're thinking about, still some things to reflect on. And so after every episode, I record my reflections, and I invite you, those of you who are watching, listen, send me your reflections as well. We can add that to the Overflow. Let's continue the conversation after the live ends. Also, if you follow me on Cara Solutions LLC, I'm doing a new series on the Confident Navigator podcast. It's called Brilliant, Not Broken, and it's a special mental health awareness month series for neurospicy entrepreneurs like me. So if you're interested in that, please look for the Confident Navigator on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Audible, Spotify, or iHeartRadio, YouTube Music, wherever you can find podcasts. Go ahead, put the Confident Navigator in and take a listen to Brilliant, Not Broken. I would love to hear your feedback. And also, lastly, we're going to do this every Saturday until our friend and community, our sibling and community gets a kidney. Okay. Pastor Yanni, some of you know her as Pastor Yanni, Reverend Yanni, the peace pastor. Our sibling in community needs a kidney. Okay. And so she's in search of potential donors who are fairly healthy, who have the blood types A or O, and the courage to commit to surgery and to help save her life. And she would love to share those safety measures with you. And if you're someone who is willing to do that, or if you have a resource, if you have a connection, if there's an organization that you know of that you could connect her to, please contact Yanni and her family at peacepeopleinc@gmail.com. peacepeopleinc@gmail.com. And if you can't do anything else, go ahead and lift up a prayer. Go ahead and lift up a prayer for Yanni so that she gets the kidney that she so desperately needs. You can also head over to EmeryLivingDonor.org, fill out the survey, and enter her name, Ayana Davis. I believe we can do this together. I believe we can help her get the kidney. All right, we're going to get back into some more conversation with our guests today. Welcome back, Dr. Amirah. Again, thank you so much for joining us today and just imparting so much of your wisdom. We are so grateful that you were willing and able even to get up early because you're in Los Angeles.
Yes, it's my pleasure.
And we do have some viewers who are from the West Coast.
Okay.
Okay, so listen. I always tell them if they're joining me from the West Coast, I know you love me. I know you love me. So there's a question on the floor before we continue our conversation. The question on the floor is, was there a study for boys too? And if not, is there plans to have a study for boys?
That's a great question. So we did include some boys in this study. We wanted to focus more on Black girls because it's a big question, right? And so while the focus was on Black girls, there were Black boys, and absolutely moving forward, I want to look more into Black boys specifically. Because there were some differences in the types of conversation that were had. So like while Black girls were a lot of those comments I mentioned came from Black girls in terms of like locks like me, skin that looks like mine. It was a little bit more complex for Black boys, possibly because of the options. Like we had male dolls, but the diversity in male dolls is not nearly as wide a variety as the female presenting dolls. But we did see some differences. There was also a little boy who was really drawn to Malibu Barbie. Like when we asked what was your favorite doll, I mean, he grabbed her so quick and was like, she's just so beautiful. So I feel like those types of things are deserving of more intentional investigation. And so we had, I think, about 5 Black boys in the study. So yeah, we definitely need more, even to just be able to make comparisons in terms of like what's different about how Black boys are thinking about things versus how Black girls are. Yeah.
My thought is that there's still sort of a stigma in Black boys playing with dolls, right?
Yes, there's that too. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so that I think that lends itself to this them not really thinking about dolls in the same way as little girls would. If we give a Black boy a doll, it's maybe it's maybe like a superhero, right? It's maybe like a Spider-Man or some kind of Marvel character. Maybe it's a character from depending on the age, like maybe Bob the Builder, something that is more, I guess, that has machismo attached to it.
100%. And so with that in that particular context, they're reconciling with something a little bit different than Black girls are. Like some of the contextual things are similar in terms of trying to figure out race and all that, but this as a mechanism for thinking about race, when, like you said, playing with dolls is such a loaded thing for Black boys, it makes it complex to the point where there might even be another medium that is more appropriate for trying to think about specifically about their thoughts about race for Black boys.
Thank you so much. And so, as someone with children in her life, you're an auntie, right?
A
And a
proud
scholar.
auntie.
So I'm sure that your work shows up. It shows up in your personal life, right? In your connections, with your family. So it shows up at the dinner table. It might show up at the toy alley, right? It might show up everywhere in between. How has your professional insight shaped how you navigate representation and self-image with the children in your life?
That's a great question. I think that one of the important things that I try to do that I think is informed by my profession is to make space for kids just to be kids. Especially like this with this idea of like creating safe spaces for kids to explore who they are and like explore their interests. I want to always be that safe space for them to explore those ideas and have those conversations. And especially as someone who doesn't have children of my own, I think that puts me in a unique position to have like a level of patience and like openness that I might not have if I was like, this is my child that I have to make sure, X, Y, and Z. And so I, try to like, cause my niece, she's 9 years old. And so I try to just like be myself and be a representation to her of a way of being. And to, as much as I can, bring some of these ideas into conversation. So if we're reading a book or something and ideas of diversity come up, asking her questions about what she thinks, and asking her why she thinks it, and, kind of unpacking those things. I think that that's part of our job as adults being in the lives of children, is to help them unpack these ideas, see what they're thinking about, and help them make sense of it. Not do it for them, but just give them a little help to help them navigate the ideas that are a little bit more complex.
Yeah. And so we also know that early intervention, right? That kind of instilling in them this pride in who they are,
Yes,
can be a game changer for young minds. And so, how would you recommend young parents and educators and all of those who engage with children? How can they better support them in facing whatever identity challenges they may have?
I think one of the big things that we can do is not shy away from it. I think there's a really big habit of shying away from the uncomfortable conversation or trying to dictate when a conversation should happen. And I think that even if it's uncomfortable, even if we don't feel like we know exactly what to say, we should be a part of that meaning making process with them. I think that's the most important thing that we can do, is listen, pay attention to what's going on, ask questions, and be a part of that process. Some of that is navigating. Some of that is going to be educating ourselves. Some of it is going to be, oh, I'm noticing this child in my life is going through this. I haven't experienced it, but let me see what I can find out. Or let me see who I know. Because, kids are raised in a village and those villages look different. Now, it might not look like the family members that you can just walk to their homes for all of us, but you have people in your lives. Who do I know that might be able to help navigate this, either with me or I can connect them with this person? So I think that we have to insert ourselves into that meaning making process. And not, even if it's uncomfortable, we have to do the uncomfortable thing.
Yeah, thank you. And so, thinking about dolls and the impact, especially on little girls, that also flows into how they beauty, right? The beauty standards in our society and how it connects to mental health. So you've contributed to initiatives like the Beauty of Black Women. How would you say, how does societal beauty standards affect the mental health of Black women and girls? And what can we do? And I think, you've stated some of this in previous responses, but what, maybe one specific thing that we can do to shift those standards?
Yeah. Well, I think societal beauty standards are hard on Black girls because they kind of stand in the face of who we are. So, when you think about the way that we should look, the body type, skin tone, hair texture, things like that, a lot of times Black girls are like pushing against those, where it's like, this is what everyone says I should look like. I don't look like that. And I have got to figure out how to still feel confident, even though I don't look like that. So societal beauty standards can be very difficult on Black girls and Black women. And we even see that in the documentary. Black women reflecting on their experiences growing up and thinking about how they didn't see representation of themselves and how that made them feel, and getting emotional about it in the present tense, even though there's things happened to when they were children. So it doesn't just impact our mental health, but it can impact it in the long term. And so, wait, I forgot the second part of your question. What was the second thing you asked me?
What's one specific thing that we can do to kind of begin shifting those standards?
Yeah, so I think that one thing that we can do and that we are doing is creating alternate spaces to provide alternate images of what can be beautiful. And I think for all, social media is like the wild, wild west, right? Like it's a lot going on. But one of the beautiful pieces within it is that it's created these this representation in these kind of like sub communities where you can see, for example, the body positivity movement. That was incredibly helpful for me as a plus size girl to be able to see people with bodies that look like mine and see them as beautiful. And that was very helpful. And I think similarly, like Black girls being able to find community with other Black girls, with curly hair like theirs, with 4C hair, with similar skin tones, and body types. I think that's one thing that helps to create a counter narrative for us to latch onto, where it's like, okay, I see that this is the overarching idea in society, but I actually have access to all this community that affirms what I look like, and I feel beautiful in this space. And the more normalized it becomes, all of a sudden it seems strange to think something different. If we can immerse ourselves in those spaces as much as possible.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking about the movie Sinners. Did you see Sinners?
Yes, I did, of course.
Okay. Whole conversation. I think we're gonna have a lot and just talk about Sinners. But Annie, you know, there were so many people on social media that's like, oh, you know, I thought she was auntie. Oh, I thought she was like the mom. Oh, you know, so thinking about beauty standards in media, right? And how we see big Black women, beautiful, dark-skinned women, we often put them in the mammy position. We never see them as a love interest. We never see them as something to be desired, right? We always see them as a nurturer, someone that takes care of. And Annie did nurture, Annie did take care of. But I'm so happy that they were intentional. That Ryan Coogler, you did your good work, sir. That Ryan was intentional about presenting Annie as this love interest, right? Which I think shocked many people who were watching it. You know, many people were like, "Oh, you know," that they were surprised, and so that lends itself to this conversation about our beauty standards. You know, how Black women, how Black girls and Black women see themselves, and what is perpetuated throughout media.
100%. If I could add to what you're saying, I agree with that, and I think it's interesting because we've seen that actor. I don't remember her real name, but we've seen that actor in other things. But the discourse that I've seen about her since her portrayal in Sinners is the most I've seen, like, praise for how beautiful she is, and like, you know, oh my goodness, like she's the most gorgeous woman I've ever seen, and like she's been beautiful. She was beautiful before this movie. But I think it speaks to what you're saying, which is like the power of positioning. Now that she has access to this role where she is able to both be nurturing and be a love interest, now it opens up our minds into the ways that we can think about her. And so I think that when we're thinking about how we can create space to like intervene in the impact of beauty standards on Black women, that is a very strong example of what repositioning can do.
Yeah. Thank you. So let's still focusing on mental health. So you wear many hats, right? A professor, researcher, you do all the things, right? And a mentor, and it's a lot. And you know, as a Black woman, it's not surprising that you do so much, right? So how do you protect and prioritize your own mental health?
This is a great question. I'm working on it daily. No. Well, one thing I do is have my own like mental health team. So I'm a big advocate for therapy. I have a therapist. It has been incredibly helpful. I also have like my community, like my people, like that hold me down. I have like my girl, because I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, but I've been living out here in LA for about 11 years. So I have been fortunate that I've been able to create a family, like a community of Black women out here that really support me. And like when I'm having a hard time, I can be like, look, and whether it's going to dinner or somebody coming over and being like, look, girl, I made you something to eat, like come over, or let me come to you, like having that kind of community. That has helped. And really just learning how slowly, that's why I said it's a work in progress, learning how slowly to, while I wear many hats and I do many things, I have to take time for myself. And learning how to do that without feeling guilty about it, which is difficult because especially as Black women, I think that we have a really keen understanding of the stakes. And so the work that I do, I know I feel like I got to do it. It's so important, but I can't do it if I'm depleted. So trying to find more balance around that has been helpful as well.
Yeah, and I know that is challenging for Black women in particular, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've often also felt like if I'm not doing something, God forbid I take a break,
Right.
my mind is still always thinking about all the things that I should be doing, and what I have to do. And I don't know, it's just kind of been instilled in us that we have to keep going. But you're absolutely right. We can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we can't give from a place of deficit.
100%. 100%.
Right?
And it's okay for us to be soft. Like,
Yeah.
my friend called me a strong Black woman the other day, and I was like, no, I don't want to be. And like, I said that jokingly, but yeah, we don't have to have capes on all the time. We can be very impactful, but we can take the cape off.
Yeah. And be the example for other Black women,
Exactly. Cape off, sis. Let's iron it or something. It's wrinkled at this point.
Yes, thank you. So if we kind of handed you the reins, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you had the opportunity to create the next generation of dolls or children's programming, what would it be? And what would you include to ensure that it is inclusive and that it nurtures self-worth?
Okay, this is a big question. All right. So I think that I know the pieces in my mind. I don't know the exact, like, this is what the show is going to be, but the pieces in my mind, I would want it to be intentional. I want it to be like educational. I think in my mind, I think like, ironically, at this moment, I think of like Sesame Street, like PBS Kids, but like with actual like representations, because Sesame Street, those kind of shows are more like what do you call them? Not monsters, but like they don't necessarily always represent people. But like I would want it to represent people, different skin tones, but also kind of educational and kind of introducing these ideas that we've been talking about today, but in a developmentally appropriate way. I also think that one thing will be really important to me is to represent body diversity more intentionally. I think that's something that we really lack, even in our discourse around like Black girl magic and like, affirming Black beauty standards. We still can be, very negative about body types, especially like different body shapes. So I would want that to be represented and there to be intentional conversations about that, especially for kids. And yeah, I think about, cause like as a teacher, as a professor, talk about culturally relevant pedagogy all the time, which is like implementing cultural artifacts into the education and like really embedding it. So moving beyond like, we're going to do a cultural day at school and like being like, no, when I teach math, I'm going to teach math with this book that has Black characters. And we're going to, investigate what's going on in your Black neighborhood and use that to learn this math skill. And I would love for that to be incorporated into, this as well, where it's like we could be learning ABCs, but we're going to learn it in a way that introduces these ideas of diversity and gives them like this cultural touch point to attach to as well. And that provides a foundation for exploring identity, for exploring what different things mean, not only for themselves, but for other cultures, and then can set that foundation for building from there.
Thank you for sharing. We are dreaming with you, Dr. We are dreaming with you. So what's next? What's next for you? Are there any projects or research that you're doing that you are excited about? How can we support you?
Yeah, so right now I'm actually working on writing up. So the research that I did for Netflix, it started off as just me helping them do to kind of create the focus groups. But we had all this footage of these conversations that we had with the kids. And if you see the documentary, I love the part with the kids, but it's very short. Like the actual kids in the documentary is very short. So I was able to talk to Netflix, and they gave me the footage from the longer scale footage from those. And so I'm working with, I have a small little team of some of my mentees working to really systematically go through those interviews and kind of pull out some of these themes and kind of write it up for publications so that people have access to the long form information. So that's one thing that's coming up. I'm also really since because the working on this documentary was my first time working in that particular context. So taking my research and like education background and putting it into the film and TV space. And I found it very rewarding because as an academic, I talk about and learn about a lot of things, but then it kind of just sits in the academy, right? It's like I'm just talking about it with professors, and it's like, what good is that? Well, we're all here together. So I like that with the documentary, I was able to have conversations with so many people, Black moms. I have really cool conversations with Black moms about how they're thinking about these things with their kids. So long story short, I'm being long-winded. Long story short, the future for me, I want to be more opportunities for more accessible dissemination of information. So like whether it be a documentary or a podcast or an opportunity like this, to be on the show to talk about these things in spaces where this information might not ordinarily exist.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And you know, we plan to rock with you every step of the way. So please keep us updated on everything that you're doing. We would love to have you back to talk about your continued work in this field. Where can people find you?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram. I'm Amirah Lindsay on Instagram. I'm Amirah Lindsay on everything, pretty much. I'm probably the most active on Instagram. You also find me on LinkedIn, Amirah Saafir on there as well.
All right, y'all. So, you know, please go ahead and research our dear Dr. Amirah and, you know, connect with her and follow, right? Yes. Stay in touch, stay in contact, and see all of the wonderful things that she's going to be doing in the future. Dr. Amirah, thank you so much for your brilliance. Thank you so much for your research. Thank you so much for the heart, right, that you bring to this work. And, you know, your presence here on Aspire today has been both grounding for me and visionary. And we're excited about all of the things that are going to be coming up for you and to our audience. Thank you, y'all. Thank you, Instagram. Thank you, Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and all of the social media pages that you are joining us from. I want to invite you to carry what you learned today with you, right? I want you to rethink what we place in the hands of our children, right? How we affirm them and how, you know, for some of us, how we heal alongside them. And so if anything today resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. I want you to share this conversation, keep it going in your own circles, and support the work of those who are doing this sacred labor 100%. Of raising up a liberated generation. And so until we see each other again next week, I want you to stay lifted. I want you to stay motivated, but most of all, I want you to stay inspired. Looking forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you again, Dr. Amirah.
Thank you.